I've collaborated on joint venture with several multinational, multi-billion dollar firms. We have some of the highest costs of energy in the Western Hemisphere. In the United States, the cost of energy ranges from as low as 8 cents and very rarely will go above 10 cents. In countries like the Bahamas, ranges from as low as 15 cents and can get as high as 65 cents per kilowatt hour. This technology, along with some of the other things we're doing, is going to dramatically reduce the cost of doing business, the cost of living, and make the Bahamas a more attractive jurisdiction. Energy was where my expertise or skills in the international business space and in the financial space came together. You must never stop learning. No matter whether you got 2 degrees, 4 degrees, doctorate or whatever, never stop learning. Be respectful, humble enough to listen to people and hear what they have to say. You got to be able to work with people. You got to cooperate. Life is shorter than we think. All of us are where we are right now, think we have in a day and we turn around and it's gone. I love what you do. Small and medium business owners and CEOs, of course, are the lifeblood of all of our countries. And you have to be creative, you have to be innovative, you have to be persistent, you gotta love what you do. When everybody goes home at 5, we're still working. The world is your oyster.
Welcome to the Agathos Consulting Podcast. I'm Seth Neds, the founder and CEO of Agathos Consulting, and today I'm honored to be joined by Wilfred Smith. Wilfred is a key player in facilitating international business and investments in the Bahamas and in the broader Caribbean. As International Global Partner at WMS International, he provides access to crucial funding and financial services. He's also the president and CEO of Green Fuel Enterprises. Today, we're going to talk about his career journey and lessons learned, as well as exploring opportunities in business funding, international business, energy, and Bahamian tourism and wealth management. Thanks for joining. Wilfred, thanks so much for coming on the show today. Good to have you.
It's a pleasure. It's my honor. Thank you. I look forward to our collaboration.
Do you mind maybe sharing a little bit about your journey into your current roles?
Yes, thank you very much. I am a Bahamian from Nassau, the Bahamas. I attended Nassau Christian Academy first. And Nassau Christian Academy was started by an American missionary called Mr. Cooper. And from Nassau Christian Academy, I went to the local university called College of the Bahamas. And from College of the Bahamas, I then had my tertiary education at Pensacola Christian College. My focus was international business and finance. Once leaving college, I then incorporated several companies. The first company I incorporated is a company called Green Fuel Enterprises, LLC. That's my American company. I then incorporated several other companies, but for the sake of this call, the other one is WMS Holdings Limited, which I incorporated in the Bahamas, and then Monastery Development Company. My area of interest, expertise, and where there's possible economic and business collaboration, I'll get into in a minute. I am member of the Bahamas Chamber of Commerce. I am chairman of Civil Society Bahamas Economics Committee. I started an association called Bahamas Business Association, and the purpose of that organization was to advocate for small and medium-sized businesses that had challenges raising resources, capital, and funding for their projects. Since then, I've collaborated on joint venture with several multinational, multi-billion dollar firms in the energy financing space. And I represent them in the Bahamas, the Caribbean, and working on some transactions going all the way to Africa. That's a brief introduction on me, who I am, what I'm doing now, and I can answer more specific questions as we go forward.
So how did you get into the energy space?
Actually, it's interesting how I got into energy. My American partner, a gentleman by the name of Robert Parkinson, introduced me to a gentleman called Bob Nicholson. And Bob Nicholson had a proprietary patented technology called Otec. What he was looking for is he wanted to introduce this energy concept into the Bahamas and the Caribbean. And he explained to me the benefits, the advantage that this affords small island developing states, less developing states, or G77 nation. So that's how I really got into energy. In the Bahamas, SIDS is called Small Island Developing States, and LDS is less developed states. A significant portion of our gross domestic product, in some instances as much as 20%, go toward energy. We have some of the highest costs of energy in the Western Hemisphere. To put it in perspective, in the United States, the cost of energy, depending on which state you're in, ranges from, in some instances, as low as 8 cents, and very rarely, except maybe for California, would go above 10 cents. In countries like the Bahamas, the cost per kilowatt of hours, and everything I speak in dollar wise is US dollars, the cost per kilowatt hours in our region, in the Caribbean, in the Americas, Central South America, and in Africa, ranges from as low as 15 cents, which of course that's well above what you pay in the United States, and can get as high as 65 cents per kilowatt hour. And
Wow.
so this technology, along with some of the other things we're doing, is going to dramatically reduce the cost of doing business, the cost of living, and make the Bahamas a more attractive jurisdiction for foreign direct investments, of which we have a substantial American presence as well.
And then I noticed you have a background in corporate finance and banking.
Yes.
Have you always enjoyed finance and business?
Actually, when I went to college, one of the first majors I had selected was banking and finance. And when I came home, something interesting happened. When I came home, the local banks was offering me the same compensation package as a retail store down the street, one of the largest retail stores. And they were opening up a new division, and they gave me the opportunity to develop and build that. And it gave me the opportunity to generate my own income, be creative with starting a business. So that entrepreneurial business blood was in me. So I decided not to go into the banking space in a formal, traditional way, but decided to use my expertise in the private sector and branch off from there. I get the ability to use that in that private business. In the structured traditional banking, you can't get too creative. They've got the I's dot and the T's crossed. And I decided, I think one of the wisest decisions I made in my life was not to go that path. And then when I was pursuing that path, I started to take my securities exchange courses and license. And I said, you know what? I can joint venture with the private sector and open up new doors or opportunities or investment opportunities or countries for them that they may not be aware of.
So when did you make that cut over from working for another business to working for yourself?
Yeah, that was about 30 years ago. When I first returned to the Bahamas from Pensacola Christian College, is when that option was offered to me. I started with that company. I stayed with that private company, and they were employed for 4 years. And then after that, I started my own businesses, and I've been in it now for maybe about 36 years on my own, self employed in my own different organization.
Awesome. So I was researching a little bit about WMS International, and could you maybe share what that organization provides?
Yeah, so when I first got into the space and I was doing my research and development, I traveled to Europe, the United States, throughout the Caribbean. And what I found out was before you invest hundreds of millions of dollars into your power generation space, the best, quickest, lowest, greatest return on investment is energy efficiency, energy conservation. And I then incorporated WMS International Energy Management and Leasing Services to be a exclusive company that provide energy saving solutions. Because whether you're getting your power from traditional power generation or whether you're getting your power from renewable energies, as much as 40% of the power inside a building is wasted. That's your lighting, your air conditioning, your refrigeration, your AC motors, your heating, and all of that. Those equipment just waste that energy, whether you're getting it from renewable energy or traditional power. As I explored and got more into the energy space, I then found out that I had that part of the equation in the energy space solved. I then found out there were opportunities in the power generation where the country began to liberalize. Because in most countries in the Bahamas and the Caribbean, Central America, you'd find the energy power generation is controlled or owned by the government or it's a monopoly. And in order to get power generation, now that's changed tremendously since I got into it. So they then began to put out what they call RFPs or requests for proposal and inviting companies and firms with the expertise, the track record, and the financial ability to help address the high costs of energy in our country. And so I reached out. That's when I began to collaborate and reach out to my American, Canadian, and British partners who joint venture with me to produce or present solutions. And what we package is a solution that affords small island developing states the ability to have total energy security. But not only energy, the Otec technology is one of those platforms that produce baseload renewable energy. That means there's a path for small island developing states to get their cost of energy in line with that of countries like the United States, Canada, and Asia. And that's the primary focus of this new technology. The other thing it does is it produces portable drinking water. So from one major capital investment, you can get an energy infrastructure that brings you in line with the developed world, or for lack of a better word, the United States, Asia, and Europe. Unfortunately, for countries like the United States, most of Asia and most of Europe only works 20 to 30 degrees from the equator. But the patented technology is owned by an American company that I represent. And this American company has the exclusive proprietary patent on the electric engine that's used by Nissan, Japan, and Ford in the United States. So this is a FinTech, forward-thinking, visionary firm in the United States called the Able Foundation that fund projects that most companies or most, even some venture capitalists would not fund in certain space. So they have some proprietary patented technology that they own around the world. Otec is one of them. And that's how that journey began and where I am at this point.
You mentioned that typically 40% of the energy is wasted. What percentage are you guys able to bring it down to?
We have case studies in the Bahamas on the energy efficiency side where we've had clients where we were able to bring down their wasted energy. Wasted energy means energy a business or home or a nonprofit organization is paying for, but it isn't benefiting the building or the organization. We've had cases in the Bahamas on the whole footprint or the whole utility bill can be reduced as much as 58%. That's on the
Wow.
whole bill. But when you look at specific components in that bill, things like air condition, you have the ability in some instances to reduce the wasted energy in different equipment like air condition 70%, and heavy exhaust fans can sometimes retrofitting that can get as much as 80%. The beauty
Wow.
of this is in order to get, because what happens is persons would discard the old air conditioned systems and buy the highest SEER equipment, which is a major capital investment. This retrofit technology that comes from a firm that has a proprietary patent out of Britain allows you to retrofit your existing capital fixed asset, make them in some instances more efficient than the highest SEER rating air conditioned systems. So to be succinct, we've had cases where we've gotten 58, 70%. Now, of course, this depends on how efficient the building is that you're going into. Most people are familiar with LED lights, changing out the fluorescent and incandescent LED lights. Lights represents only about 30% of that total efficiency bill. In some
Okay.
instances, we can't get that high because they've done some things, but if they've done nothing, we can get in some instances as high as 58 off the entire utility bill.
So with the
WMS.
WMS International, could you elaborate on the specific funding mechanisms you utilize, like debt to equity financing? And you
Yes.
said your projects can range like 35 million to 800 million.
Yeah. So, what the funders and partners that we represent provide a whole range of financing funding solution. So we offer both debt and equity financing, but we also collaborate with one of the largest American pension funds. And if the firm has a strong balance sheet or they're well established or they get somebody that vouch for them, in some instances, we can get 100% financing for those firms. We can go out as far as 60 years. So the time period on, so it's debt equity for the most part. Of course, we do development, bridge financing on a case, and everything is on a case by case basis. On companies that have a strong balance sheet, pension funds will provide 100% and could go as far as 60 years. Now, that's unheard of to go out 60 years, but that's not for everybody. The traditional time period for a traditional business would be from maybe 5 years to, in some instances, 7 years. But we've created something called a green lease. What green lease is, we'd go into a business establishment, we'd provide a turnkey solution. That turnkey solutions mean with our international partners, American, Canadians, and Europeans, and our local engineers, we would provide engineering, procurement, construction, and financing for those green lease solutions. And we'll take those out up to 15 years on a case by case basis. As it relates to the interest rate, in some instances, we can get interest rates as low as 2.5% or up to 18%. Let me qualify that because that's a huge disparity or difference. Usually, when we get interest rates as low as 2.5%, in those cases, sometimes we're competing against other countries. So, for example, if we're competing against a Chinese or a European or an Asian company against an American company with American partners, equipment, fixed assets, hard equipment costs, we can get those as low as 2.5%. Because we have private investors in our network, sometimes some countries that look for funding, most of the companies we seek to do business with as one of our criteria must meet the OECD or the SEC requirements or criteria of the United States. But there are private investors who are non-Americans, and in some instances, Americans that would look at some countries on a case-by-case basis if they have a proprietary technology, if the ROI or the internal rate of return is attractive enough, they'll fund the project. But in those instances, they'd get a higher interest rate on their money to mitigate against some of the risks, along with other collateral to support it. So, from an interest rate point of view, it ranges as low as 2.5% to as high as 18% in those countries that are off the SEC or ODC criteria, from as low as 6 months to as long as 60 years on a case by case basis. Typically, the sweet spot for these funders, investors, and partners when we first started this was it started out as 30 million and up. These persons have funded major substantial projects in excess of $1 billion on a case by case basis. Not all projects are that high, but what happened of late, and I see them receptive to it. So with one client, we raised $250 million for an energy project in the Bahamas. And then because I'm on the chairman of the Economics Committee for Civil Society Bahamas, a lot of the nonprofit organizations, churches, and schools who have a difficulty getting money in the private sector has approached me about asking my partners, investors, if they would create a fund or program for nonprofit schools and churches. And that's how the Green Lease program got started for them, which we expanded to the private sector. So we were able to offer them something that was not available to them before. We're working with the IDB, which is the Inter-American Development Bank, one of those large international funding organizations, usually fund governments, but they're now into the private sector. And so they're excited about this Green Lease program because we open up a world of opportunity. Because the cost of energy is so high in our region or jurisdiction, the fixed cost of energy in the Bahamas is enough to cover all of the equipment necessary to put a renewable system in, pay for total O&M, that's operation, maintenance, and management, create a savings for the client, and in 15 years, without putting out any money, they get to own the renewable system. But the big game changer on this question, last thing on this question, is the Otec technology brings not only energy security, so in the Caribbean, we import every year in excess of 60 billion US dollars worth of energy. When you expand that to Central and South America, it is then more substantial. But this Otec technology allows us to eliminate that need for imports. Most of the developed world has transitioned, well, they still use coal and diesel, but most of the developed world have transitioned into what they call LNG or liquefied natural gas. It's still a fossil fuel, and 50% of the scientists said fossil fuels, whether it's diesel or coal or LNG, contributes to climate change or global warming. I try to be politically correct when I get into this global warming, climate change. 50% say that, 50% don't believe it. But OTEC is the only baseload renewable energy in the world. That means you're able to compete with the fossil fuel from a 24-hour, 365 days, but you're also to do more than the fossil fuel. You're able to produce potable drinking water. You're able to produce, when I get into the technology, if you get into it, fisheries. But here's the big game changer. A lot of the developed world, especially since the war in Ukraine, energy security now has become critical even for the developed world, more so in Asia and Europe. And President Trump, on his last administration and now, have been strong on maximizing America's use of its own energy resources and its gases. But a lot of the and it's used developed very liberally and openly, not to disparage or discriminate against other countries, but specifically the Americas, the Canadas, the Asias, and Europes of the world have been directing hundreds of billions of dollars into what they call the hydrogen space. And the other game changing energy solution is what they call green hydrogen. So there's a lot of lacks that solar cannot do. And even in the EV market with the electric push for electric vehicles, there's a lot of limitations when it comes to the ships, trains, heavy transportation vehicles. The EV hasn't caught up to those type of transportation equipment yet, or even large power plant. Hydrogen is one of those fuels of the future that, of course, the exhaust from hydrogen, or if you don't know, is water. So the byproduct of hydrogen is water. But what OTEC allows small and developing states is to produce green hydrogen less expensive than wind or solar. But what OTEC also allows us to do is create an export commodity. See, right now, currently, and going forward, the only thing we did in small island developing states is import our fuel. Now, there's some countries in the Caribbean and Latin America that has fuel, like Venezuela, Trinidad and Tobago, and some other countries are finding it now. But for the most part, the bulk of us imported our fuel. OTEC allows us not only not have to import that, but also create a new export opportunity in the hydrogen space. And the OTEC facility is very modular. You can have an OTEC facility from a viability or banking point of view. An OTEC facility can be as small as a 20 megawatt or can go up to 100 megawatt. And then you can put multiple OTEC size plants to produce whatever megawatt that you want. And there's a huge amount of opportunity using disruptive technologies that we have our partners in the United States and Europe have. And that's what we're excited about. And those are some tremendous investment opportunities. I'll talk about some of the advantage from a tax point of view the Bahamas offers to investors.
Yeah, so maybe let's go into international business and exports, and what opportunities do you see for businesses that are looking to expand into or export from the Bahamas and the Caribbean region?
Yeah, so an excellent opportunity from a geopolitical, economic return on investment point of view. From an American investor's point of view, here's some key important facts. First of all, we're an English speaking company. We're 15 minutes by jet from Florida to the Bahamas. There are no sales tax, no income tax, no inheritance tax, no capital gains tax. We were referred to in the past, which is a negative word, a tax haven. We're not that anymore. We're now what we call tax neutral. Our financial jurisdiction or centers compared to New York, Luxembourg, Switzerland, the US, and so several other, London, we're on par with that. As it relates to, we have in the Bahamas one of the largest transshipment terminals in the world, which means products coming from the east to the west are going from, usually for the most part, they came from the east to the west, our side of the world. And there's a transshipment hub in one of our islands called Freeport Grand Bahama that was owned by Hutchison Whampoa. Since the Trump administration came in, and this firm, Hutchison Whampoa, has about 23 of these major shipping ports around the world. They were recently purchased by BlackRock and MSC, two major American firms. Obviously, BlackRock just says how big it is. And the reason why that transshipment hub is critical to any large, medium, or small investors, the first thing it does is it is in the Bahamas, sits, like I say, 15 minutes from the United States, with several other significance of the Bahamas is we're in two of the major shipping lanes. 80 to 90% of the ships that come from the east to the west pass through Bahamian waters. And one of those areas is in the island of Grand Bahama, is where this major transshipment hub is. This transshipment hub is strategically important. It's less expensive than the hub in California, New York. That's a strategic place. Now, as the world changes how it does business, who it does business with, where it gets its commodity from, and where it's manufactured, and all of that, the Bahamas becomes an attractive space. One of the things that's important with energy and transshipment is the cost of producing goods. So we see in the Bahamas from an investment opportunity, the energy space is a huge investment with huge returns, anywhere 20, 30, 40, And in some rare cases, 50% and no taxes on it. Those are net amounts. So, from an investment point of view, from a tax point of view, the Bahamas has 250. By the way, the Bahamas has an older democracy than our big brothers in the United States. We got about 256 years. We're now what we call Commonwealth countries, an independent country. But our parliamentary democracy is 258 or 68 years, which is older than the American democracy. So we're a democratic, independent country, sorry. I'm trying to think of some other key things. I sent some notes to you. Some will come up. So repatriation of funds. We have on average about 9 million Americans that visit the Bahamas. Last year was a banner year for us. We got 11 million Americans that visit the Bahamas. The bulk of our gross domestic product, we only got 450,000 people. We've got 700 islands and keys. Of those 700 islands and keys, about 20 of them are inhabited for the most part, but the bulk of that population is on Nassau and Grand Bahama, to which more than 70%. So, as far as business opportunities are, we have a huge, our number one industry is in tourism. Financial services, our second industry, and shipping. We have one of the world's largest flags in the Bahamas. I think we're in the top 10. Dollar trades on par with the American dollar, but from an exchange point of view, it's about a 5 cents difference. All of the major banks are here. We have a strong international banking arrangement. So, from a trust, corporate management, business sector, we offer that big time. One of the things that I see that we have not capitalized or monetized on, a lot of American companies would have gone to other countries like Switzerland, Jersey, Isle of Man for their global business. But the Bahamas offers a lot of that and greater benefit closer to the United States. One of America's largest marine bases, called the Otec base, is on an island called Andres. And from that base, the United States Marines can hear anything that moves in the ocean anywhere in the world. We have a close relationship with our American partners, not only from a government point of view, but also from a financial point of view and from an investment point of view. So there are many areas of investment opportunities we can get into. And I can tell you, I've had some American investors that were introduced to some opportunities in the United States through our Bahamian firm. Just to mention a few of those that I think would be disruptive, have global implication, and American firms that are now seeking investors, funders, whether debt or equity. So I have an American company that has one of the largest rare earth minerals deposit in the United States. As China was one of those countries that kind of monopolize or seeking to control that for whatever geopolitical reasons, mines in the United States that are looking for investors. And the good thing about this, they have a proprietary, one of the major challenges of rare earths is it's environmentally very destructive. It would not meet the rigorous current, which is subject to possible change, environmental aspects in the United States. But this American company has developed a proprietary technology. You have a national lab, I forgot what its name. They're working in collaboration with them, and they've developed a proprietary patented technology that allows them to process rare earth material that meets American standards. So that is a huge goal opportunity as it relates to the Defense Department, as it relates to AI, advanced technology, cell phones, EV, and all that, these rare earth materials. So that's a good prime, ready to go opportunity for Americans, Canadians, or anybody else around the world. I have another American opportunity called Zero Gravity. And what they did, they developed a 100% all natural product in collaboration with NASA. So NASA engaged them to find a way to grow food on the moon. And so they brought that technology back to Earth. And what this technology does, it's 100% natural replacement for fertilizer that does several things. This is another investment opportunity that has disruptive agricultural and global opportunities here. It uses the innate genes of a plant to fight all the diseases like canker and all these things that destroy plants and crops. But what it also does, and this has been scientifically proven in the United States, in China, in India, and multiple countries around the world across the United States, where it increases the yields of crops, anywhere from 20 up to 40%. So whether that's avocados, tobacco, strawberry, bananas, leafy greens, all of those stuff, there's another ground floor disruptive proprietary patented opportunity out of America that's seeking funding. The last one I want to mention, because this is a big concern around the world, housing. So there's an Indian company that is based in the United States that have a proprietary patented green housing solution. They're doing a lot of this down south in Florida. They can have a 2,500 home built in 30 days that withstands Category 5 hurricanes. What they're looking to do is expand these factories around the world, across the United States. So that's another opportunity. There are many other opportunities in other spaces that we can get into that have huge returns that's seeking both debt and equity funding. And these can be duplicated in the United States, across the Bahamas, across the Caribbean, across Central America, and all the way to Africa. We also have in the fintech space, this one I really love. In the fintech space, we have investors seeking debt or equity funding for two things. We have persons that have gold mines that they literally own in Africa, that they're seeking joint venture partners to collaborate with them on funding these gold and diamond mines. But we also, on the Western side, we have an American company with a proprietary total digital banking system that they have worked with Wells Fargo, Bank of America, and what they're looking to do is a total digital banking solutions. They're looking to export this across the Caribbean, in the United States, and of course, all the way to Africa. So they have an exclusive proprietary full ecosystem in the digital space. One of the things they're seeking to do in the cryptocurrency space is this: they have a gold backed digital currency. So, what they're saying to countries, the Bahamas again try to lead in some of these things. We're the first country where a central bank has a digital currency that trades with our fiat currency. This particular American investor with this patented technology wants to partner with our central bank. A lot of people don't know, but organizations like BlackRock, Blackstone, Bank of America are working privately, along with, of course, the Treasury of the United States, to look seriously into this space. But Asia, Europe are more ahead of us in the Western world on this. But that's another huge opportunity, because one of the things you'd find, a lot of persons in the United States that send money back home wherever they come from, it's hundreds of billions of dollars are repatriated to different countries, and it's extremely expensive. This company with this proprietary patented technology, working with the United Nations, has a huge opportunity in the fintech financial space. So I know I said a lot. There's a lot more we can get into, but those are some of the brief highlights. Major companies doing major second home real estate developments. You've got real estate developments now as high as $300 million, where these homes sell anywhere from 7 million to 40 million per unit. So we've got a lot of islands available for development, joint venture partners as well.
How do you bring in all these or get all these investments? Is it just through network? How do you hear?
Yes, so I'm a part of a funding network team in Europe, Canada, the United States. And what they do is whenever there's clients seeking funding, they put it on our private network. And then we all go out and source funders, investors, or partners for these firms. So that's where I get access to all of those. And my partners are in the United States, Canada, and Europe as well.
Do you typically provide 100% of the funding needs, or are
Everything
you?
is on a case by case basis. That's possible. I
Yeah.
have, in fact, I have four current programs, energy programs right now, where my American partners are providing 100% financing. We have a real estate development. You have firms like Disney building a project on an island, and once a company like Disney does something like that, then people are attracted to that space. So yes, on a case by case basis, we look for those opportunities, especially if we're giving the power generation exclusivity. But we do it outside of that as well. We can do 100% funding, but it's on a case by case basis. Whether we go to the IDB or whether we go to our private investors, it ranges anywhere from 70-30 or 80-20.
So how you mentioned tourism is the number one industry. What trends are you seeing in tourism?
Oh, yeah, that's interesting. What I've noticed with a lot of the tourism space in the past, tourism used to be just hotel rooms, but I see them transitioning like Disney is. you'll have tourism with hotel rooms combined with second home or timeshare. So even the two largest resorts we have here, which is Atlantis, which is a multi-billion-dollar American-owned infrastructure, and our second largest developed resort is an organization called Bahama that's owned by a Chinese group. Both of those organizations, as they're expanding their hotel or tourism space, are adding a lot of second homes or timeshare. We move from timeshare, it's more second homes. So you'd find persons, we have a large network of high network people from around the world. In fact, the tax structure in the Bahamas is so attractive. We literally have some Americans that gave up their American citizenship and live in some of these high end developments. So you'd find that they would, or we have permanent residency. We get access to person with permanent residency. All that requires is an investment, depending on what type of permanent residency that requires an investment, $500 million and higher. So you get permanent residency that gets you access. The Bahamas, so the tourism is morphing into more than just tourism. They're adding these other second home, permanent resident as part of their tourism front. But they're also expanding into the amusement or attraction. So you cannot just have a hotel. You got to have a hotel with additional attractions or amusements or things of that nature. So that is all good for us. And so we like what's happening in the tourism space. And we have only touched the tip of the iceberg there. And what we're now finding, just showing you how to expand on the tourism space, a lot of high net worth, wealthy people are buying islands and they're developing private enclaves. We got person like Larry Flint that have second homes here. You've got persons like David Copperfield. Of course, you've got Michael Jordan. You've got Oprah Winfrey. You got President Bush. And you got some well-known American global actors and politicians and high net worth individual that have second and third homes in the Bahamas as part of the tourism component. One of the things we have in the Bahamas that only three places in the world have is a pre-clearance facility, meaning an American coming in and out of our country is as though you're traveling through a state. I got to be careful saying that because I know America and Canada are talking about the 51st state, but we have a pre-clearance facility in the Bahamas, one of only three in the world. And just to show you the further collaboration, we have an arrangement with the American governments, especially Coast Guard, because we have some common enemies as it relates to drug trafficking, as it relates to human struggling, as it relates to illegal immigration. So we have an arrangement, a very close, succinct relationship with the United States military, Coast Guard, where they come into our waters and they help patrol and support. Because you got Canada on the north, you got Mexico on the southeast. We're one of those other critical third borders of the United States. So we have a very good relationship as it relates to that aspect. Yachts, we got one of the largest, I should say one of the largest, one of the more popular, well-known yachting spaces for Americans in Bimini. So we have very strong yachts. We have thousands, tens of thousands of yachts that sail to the Bahamas, not only on pleasure cruises, but because of our clean turquoise water, lobster, fisheries, groupers, and things of that nature. You'll find a lot of corporate Americans come to the Bahamas and do those type of things as well.
Is the cruising industry increasing
Oh,
there too?
yes, cruising is huge for the Bahamas. You'll find all the large cruises like Carnival, Disney, MSCs, Oasis of the Seas. All of them come to the Bahamas because we're the closest port for sure. And
Yeah.
most of their itinerary, they'll stop in the Bahamas and stop to other Caribbean islands. But I see what's happening in the tourism industry now. We get about 6 million cruise visitors a year, and that's growing. What's happening in the cruise industry is they're developing their private islands. And Royal Caribbean has a major private island. Carnival Cruise is building a $300 to $400 million private island for their cruise passengers, and MSC is building one. So the new thing in the cruise industry is their own private island enclave. That's what we're seeing in the cruise industry now, moving from just cruising and passing through, but building their private islands as well.
We've been to Royal Caribbean's private island a couple times.
Yes, they're building a new one in Nassau. The one you've been in was on one of the other islands.
Cool. So I want to shift a little bit, just some of the challenges of being a CEO or president, and maybe some specific examples of challenges you've been through and what you've learned through that.
Yeah, each country has its own culture. So having being in the international business space and spending a lot of time in the United States, the Bahamas and the Caribbean culture is very laid back. Time really goes slow. You'd have to adjust to that mentality a lot in the culture. The second thing is the cost of doing business as it relates to energy, lack of manpower, resources. Those are some of the challenges you face on doing business here. So we bring solutions that we feel would change that in a big way, that would attract more foreign direct investment. What offsets those challenges, though, is the high return on investment because of no income tax, no sales tax, easy repatriation of funds and profits, the banking taxing structure, the stability from a geopolitical point of view, the exchange of our dollar with the US. So, on the other side of the ledger, from an investment point of view, the low tax regime offsets that. But on the other side, like I said, the high cost of electricity, the high cost of doing business, the transshipment terminal opens up a huge opportunity. So the challenges that I faced was that transition. I talked about the high cost of doing business, the lack of some resources, which means you'd have to bring some of those expertise in. But the government and the Ministry of Education is seeking to address that. It isn't that you can't find it. You'll find it, but you'll pay for that because of demand, supply and demand. So we have a huge expat population in the Bahamas to address some of those shortfalls in some of those areas. You have to believe in what you're doing. You have to be committed. You have to be persistent. You have to keep at it and don't give up. You're going to have obstacles in an area of your life, whether that's your relationship, whether that's your family, whether that's your business. You just got to be determined, be persistent. And there's a lot of opportunity. I'm excited about the future for the Bahamas and the collaboration with the United States going forward.
For someone who's wanting to get into a CEO or president role, what are some of the key skills or maybe even soft skills that you think are essential?
You must never stop learning. No matter whether you got 2 degrees, 4 degrees, doctorate, or whatever, never stop learning. That's the first thing. The second thing I'd say is you must be prepared to listen to people. You don't have to agree with what they're saying. And once you've determined that what they're saying can advance the objective, the business, the goal, but listen to people. Because sometimes you get some of the interesting ideas, solutions to problem, answers to question, just listening to people. So you got to always continually be learning, be respectful, humble enough to listen to people and hear what they have to say. And you got to be able to work with people. You got to cooperate. And there are many more things. And I'd say education is important no matter what. I say this understanding. Some of the wealthiest people in the world didn't complete their education, but those people had some gifts and some talents that most people don't have. So if you can, whatever you do, continue your education. Now, experience becomes important. You could have a lot of education and no experience. Of course, if you can have both the education and the experience, it's good. And most persons, when they finish with their tertiary education, usually finds what you studies is not where you're going to start out with. But wherever you go and you apply yourself, you ought to learn something from that space until you get where you want. Get your education, be respectful of people, listen to them. You got to unite and you have to work together. Life is shorter than we think. All of us at where we are right now think we have forever in a day and you turn around and it's gone. And love what you do. No matter what, love what you do. Be focused on your health because that's important. You could be very wealthy, but if you're not healthy, you can't enjoy it. And whatever you do, always remember family. And if you're a person of faith, remember that sometimes that which carries you through some of the challenges in life you have if you're so minded. And there's a huge opportunity available in the world today. If we work together as nations and countries, there's a lot we can do and accomplish that we'll all be proud of and we can leave to our children and children's children.
I want to give you an opportunity to just share where people could learn about your different businesses
Okay.
and how they can reach out to you.
Yes. Where you can find or contact me is WMS, and that WMS stands for Wealth Money System. I didn't want to confuse you, but that's what it is. WMSBahamas.com is the website that kind of highlights the areas, of course, not in the details I just mentioned there. So we're transitioning, building a deeper, more extensive website. The phone contact is 1242 424 7336. And my email is wsmith, and you'll see all of these on the website, but it's wsmith at wmsholdings with an s.com. That's my corporate email.
So I will put the website, phone number, and email in the show notes there so you can reach out to Wilfred if you are interested in investing in some of these investments or want to reach out for energy solutions or all these different aspects. Any final thoughts you have for small or medium business owners or CEOs?
Yeah, so small and medium business owners and CEOs, of course, are the lifeblood of all of our countries. And you have to be creative. You have to be innovative. You have to be persistent. You got to love what you do. When everybody goes home at 5, we're still working. The world is your oyster. You may start out small, but if you're committed, if you're persistent, good service is extremely important. And if you keep at it, you're persistent and use your gifts and talents. And if you lack those gifts and talents, you retain or hire or collaborate with persons. And depending on what small and medium sized business you're in, love what you do and you will be rewarded. Sometimes it may take a little bit longer than you or I have planned, but once you be persistent, it'll come in one way or the other. Either you have something that you can pass on to your children, or either somebody will buy out your business if it's doing the type of returns or it's in a space, but it's something that you own, that you have. And in tax structured systems like the United States, if you can own a small and medium sized business, it's one of those places to be. I don't disparage against persons working for other persons, but I'd say if you have a choice, become an entrepreneur, get in your own business. The demand is there. So take advantage of it. In our free countries that gives us the opportunity, nobody sets our salary, nobody denies us those rights and privileges and benefits we have. Use it, monetize it for yourself, your family, your community, your country, and be the best that you can be at whatever it is you're good at or you desire to be it at.
Wilfred, thank you so much for coming on the show. Really appreciated the conversation. Learned a lot.
Thank you. I did too. I look forward to interacting with you or anybody else that's interested in doing business.
Thanks so much for watching this episode. If you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel and also like if you found this helpful. Thanks.